Hey Zoomers, welcome back to World Zoom. So happy you could join me today. Hey, I titled this on the thumbnail, Damn, because that's exactly what the Russian/American YouTuber Vitaly thought after his first couple hours in his new lovely prison there in Manila. So I wanted to talk about, how is he going to get out of this mess and what is he expecting during the time that he is actually there. The first impression that he had was just the overall smell of the facility, an overwhelming smell of urine and feces and body odor, in that there are hundreds of prisoners there in a very tight area without the ability to be able to bathe or shower appropriately. And the toilets, you're lucky, if there's a couple for, every 50, 60 inmates that are there, and they're all on a flush that you have to pour water in, which is not available. So the smell had to be overwhelming. And I've seen a couple videos where they talk about, he broke down when he saw the area that he was going to be staying in. I don't know how anyone could know that, but chances are that's a distinct possibility. I wanted to talk about how is he going to get out of this, and then I'll talk about the things that he is experiencing, in his first couple days in captivity. And it really just comes down to money. When you have an extraordinarily corrupt government and country, it oftentimes comes down to either who you know or do you have the resources to be able to get yourself out of a situation. He's got himself in sort of a double whammy in that, or triple really, in that there's no doubt about his guilt to some of the things that he's done because he filmed it and it's on video and it was posted, and believe me, they have all that. Number two, the government was actually filing some of the charges against him. Now, some of them may not sound like a big deal, and they wouldn't be in Canada and the UK and the US. But remember, they do what they want in a country such as the Philippines. So if he gets crossways with the prosecutor or the judge, or they want to make an example out of him, they'll just keep adding and trumping up the charges for the things that he did as they review the videos. Perhaps the most troubling thing that he has is that some individuals that he either assaulted or belittled or stole something from have come forward to file charges against him. Now, you'd say, Paul, why is that a big deal compared to the government filing charges against him? Why would that be more critical or big trouble for him? It is for this reason, and that is all of those individual charges have to be settled before he can be deported. You can imagine in the case of Barry Jordan, for example, his case, he had charges that were levied against him by an American expat, and it took him 2 years to work through that process to be able to get to court, to work through that process. And even now, he is still there stuck in Bicatan. So when someone comes forward, and especially when it's a Filipina, and file charges against you, it is there. And with the government, his lawyer can meet with the officials, right? The immigration, the Department of Justice. A negotiation can be had. They can talk about bail, not likely in this case, but bail should cost him, somewhere, if he could get it, somewhere between $6,000 to $10,000 US. He can talk about, they can work through having all the charges dismissed and get him the order for deportation. Now, it gets much more difficult when you have individual Filipinos, depending on how many file charges, because then that lawyer that hopefully he has retained needs to find them on an individual basis, go and meet with them at their home or place of business, wherever it might be, negotiate an appropriate settlement amount for the problems that Vitaly has caused them. So if I was his lawyer, I would go and speak with the restaurant owner where he stole the fan or stole the tricycle, say, hey, really sorry about that. We'd really like to have this go away. What type of money amount or apology can we get for you to have these charges be withdrawn? But he's got to do that with each and every one of those people. And if one of them really has their dander up, or they have the backing, let's say they already have some money and they just want to set an example for someone that's coming in and abusing their country, it can be a long wait for him to work himself through that process. So in the Philippines, it comes down to, do you have money or do you not have money? If you have money, all these things can disappear, but it's very slow moving process as he works through all these issues, and he has to have a pretty aggressive lawyer to do that, and that it doesn't cost as much as it does in the U.S. to have a top criminal defense lawyer, but it's definitely in the multiple of thousands of dollars to retain someone. So when you start to add all those things up, the lawyer fees, the fees to the warden, for example, in the prison that he's in, the fees to the government to be able to get bail or to be able to get a deportation order or have the charges reduced or dismissed, and the fees that are going to go to the lawyer for going out, finding the people, and the money that he or she would have to negotiate with the individuals in a super corrupt society, that's going to be, quite a burden and can take some time for them to work through. So in addition to the money issues, and I have no idea whether this guy has any money or not. You look at where he's associated in Florida, in the U.S., in Boca Raton. I mean, that's an ultra wealthy area, but they also have, individuals that don't have any money that are in the service industry there. So I don't know enough to know whether the guy's got money. But if he doesn't have money, he's there for a long duration if he can't come up with any money. So the first thing that he would have experienced going in was the smell. The second is, there's 15 to 30, depending on the census, in a room made for two, in a cell made for two. There are no beds, there are no pillows, there are no blankets. Ideally, when you go in, you can negotiate with a guard or most likely with another inmate, especially the Chinese. The Chinese control the commerce in all of, except for the Filipino prisons, mostly Filipinos. The Chinese control the commerce in all the prisons of the Philippines. And so that's who you go with when you need, whatever it is that you need to make your stay comfortable, from a fan to a pillow to a blanket, whatever. I mean, that's what they do. A lot of them are there for the duration because they know if they leave and get deported back to China, for example, whatever charges they may have back home will most probably be the end of them. That could be the death penalty or could be life. And so they can't go back. They've got to work through another options. And so they make money by controlling the commerce in the jails. So he's going to have to learn that. Depending on if there's other Russians, he is Russian. And so that could go a long way in helping him out, because your countrymen oftentimes will be the ones to lend you a hand while you get established. But you get just a little patch of concrete that you're going to sleep on. Your shoulder bumps into one guy, your left shoulder bumps into another. That's where you're going to stay for extended periods of time, up to 46 hours continuously in the cell with 2 hours outside. That's the norm for the Philippine foreigner prisons that are there. And so, it's not too fun to come in and you usually there's just one toilet and it's not a flush toilet. So you can imagine the smell that's involved with people, 30 living in an area made for two. Third, there's no running water, no flush toilets, no showers, no water to drink. Everything is on your dime. So if you want a pillow, you got to buy it. You want a blanket, so you want something to sleep on like a little mat, you got to buy it. You want water to brush your teeth or to drink or to cook something, you have to buy it. You want water to flush the toilet. There's no running water. None whatsoever. And so you got to buy this big 5-gallon drum to be able to pour in there to flush the toilet. And basically, when you're with a bunch of guys, and you don't utilize your water to flush the toilet, you're going to get yourself in trouble with your cellmates for leaving a mess and a stink, in the cell, especially when you force them to use their water that can be difficult to get and expensive to actually flush the toilet. This sounds unbelievable, but you've seen the conditions in different television shows and what you've heard about. It's true and worse. Fourth, there's no food of any kind. They're not going to give you any food ever or any water of any kind. So you have to arrange all that to be fed. Luckily there are some groups, as I mentioned, the Chinese, some of the others that will prepare meals as best they can and actually sell those for a marked up price, still reasonable, sell them for a marked up price. But what most of the people do is you'll be allowed for a period of time to utilize your cell phone, and you order the phone in or make arrangements for the guards or the guards' family or just people who live in the prison. There are folks all over that place that have no ties. They have no charges. They're Filipinos that were basically homeless. Entire family groups, grandparents, parents, children. Every morning you'll see a group of children leaving the jail with their book bags going to school. They're unfortunate souls, and that's where they live. In every corner, every closet, every office, you've got, dozens and dozens of folks, Filipinos, that actually live there in that prison. They come and go as they please. It's just an odd situation, that you would have all these people living there. There's goods and bads with that if you happen to be an inmate. So Vitaly can be able to utilize, let's say you've got a 15, 16-year-old. He's going to be more than happy to run errands for you for a little bit of money. He could be your guy to go to Burger King or Taco Bell or go get your 5-gallon water, go to the pharmacy and get your medications, anything, you can use him multiple times per day. But you're not, for the most part, where he is, you don't get your cell phone. They'll give it to you for a small period of time for you to be able to order your food for the course of the day. And, then you'll be able to get that. But, if you think that it's not possible for a prison not to have any water, any food, or anything, a bed or even a toilet, well, he's experiencing it right now. So he's going to realize real quickly that he's made a pretty significant error, and now he's going to have to regroup and try and find his way out of it. So there's no cleaning, there's no janitorial service. What is done is the inmates will order in or have the guards or have the people that live there, they'll pool their resources and buy some Lysol, some Clorox, cleaning supplies, mop, broom. I mean, there's not anything. Anything in that prison is owned by the inmates and has nothing to do with the facility. And remember, the average guard makes between $200 and $300 US per month. So if Vitaly happens to get on the bad side of the guards, I can't think of anything that you could do that would be any worse than that. You can make the government angry, right? That can be solved with cash. You can make the individuals angry that you did the individual crimes to. That also could be resolved with apology and some cash. You make the person that controls your entire life in the prison, you make them angry, then you've got problems, serious problems that could lead to really ill health and, refusal of your medications, refusal of really anything. So realize that these people make, way, way less than our minimum wage. A couple dollars an hour, if $1 an hour. And, they're just not going to put up with a lot of nonsense. And he did one of the two things you really can't do in the Philippines, in most countries. Obviously he didn't mess with any kids, which is a great thing. That would have him in just an unbelievable amount of trouble. But the second worst thing you can do in the Philippines from there is have an insult or have some sort of abuse of an elderly Filipino, whether it's male or female, but especially abuse of a grandmother. He's got a couple of videos where he's belittling and talking down to a grandmother type in the Philippines. Believe me, every guard has seen that video and knows exactly what he did. So has every inmate, just as the government has. And depending on how offended those guards are on his behavior, the guards are just normal, like you and I. If they see a video of you at a shopping mall and you steal a fan in a restaurant, they may chuckle a little bit and shake their head at the nonsense. They see Vitaly steal the hat off of a security guard and run away wearing the guy's hat, or he jumps off a moving jeepney and doesn't pay his bill. Those things, they're going to think that this guy's not so bright, but, sort of funny. Perhaps it's funny. Haranguing and belittling a Filipino elder, that's not funny. That's not funny to them, and he's going to have to overcome that hurdle to be able to get by and keep himself established that's there. As I mentioned before, there's no medication, there's no health care. Whatever you can arrange, to get the medicines, most things are available without a prescription. So again, if you happen to find that high school kid or one of the other folks that are living in the jail, to be able to be your errand person, they can go to the pharmacies and get your medication because there's no other way to get it. You sort of have to self-diagnose, which is a problem, right? I mean, if you have something wrong with you, you have to decide what sort of medication that you need to be able to treat it, because there's no nurse, and there's no doctor that you can go to and say, these are my symptoms, what do I need for treatment? You've got to do it yourself. But again, money prevails like in all of these situations. And, you can get the medicines if you have the right person to go and get them for you. Going back to Barry Jordan, for example, who's a pretty good guy. He got his deportation order in July of 2023, so it's coming up on 2 years. He just recently settled his court case with the American, so he was sent from the jail in Cebu City to Manila, where he'll stay until he can come up with the money to pay his fine. He had an overstay fine, I think of 7 or 8 years. That was somewhere around, at least that I know of, around 210,000 pesos. So you've got, a little over 4,000 US dollars. So perhaps if he can come up with that and pay it, he'll be on his way. But you can see the pattern here. Barry didn't have any money to hire legal counsel, and luckily some folks stepped up and helped him out to be able to cover some of his costs. But if Vitaly doesn't have any money to be able to do in this thing, I mean, he could be looking at years in this situation. So hopefully he does, and he can, work his way through it. So he's in good shape. You might have seen his photos. He's a big guy, muscular, obviously goes to the gym. There's not really that worry unless he goes to a Philippine prison. So let's say in several months from now he doesn't have any money and he can't get these charges dismissed. He hadn't been able to negotiate with the Bureau of Immigration to have some of these things thrown out and be on his way, and he does actually go to trial. He will go to a Filipino prison. And that's a whole different ballgame. Right now, in the prison that he's at, they're all a bunch of old guys that are mostly overstayers. There's nobody that's going to beat the crap out of you and gang up against you. You got the Chinese guys, you got the Russian guys. They have their own little clique, but I wouldn't really call it a gang. Their only gang is to get as much money out of you buying goods and services as possible, but no real actual threat to yourself. Filipino prison, however, is a whole different ballgame where from day one, he'll have to pay protection money from the first day that he's in there. And if he doesn't have it, he's really in for a long, long sentence, especially when the Filipinos find out that his crimes were against an older Filipino woman. That is not going to go well for him. The last thing that he can expect or not expect is any help from his embassy, whether it's Russian or he had something, a green card, or whatever he has for the American side from there. There's going to be no help. They'll come every 60 days, give you a book, a little tiny toothbrush, and some toothpaste, maybe 10, 15 multivitamins. Literally, that is all you're going to get from the embassy. And so don't expect any help there because you have charges from a third party. They're going to let it run its course. So it doesn't matter the abuses that you are, experiencing in the jail. There's going to be no help from that group. You got to help yourself. So anyway, let me know what you think. I think he's in for a rough road compared to some other people and other charges. So hopefully he can work through it and get the heck out of there. So anyway, from World Zoom, I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.